What's up, YouTube? Let's take a look at this beautiful Tom Anderson Cobra S. I'll play a little bit. This is a song called The Chicken Pickin' Blues. It was inspired by Mr. Joshua Redman, who is out of this world cool. 2, 3. Well, I did not a very good job on that intro. Anyway, that's a really fun thing to play over because if you look cool, it looks like I have a carpenter amp problem. Can't wait to deal with that. Actually, the head is just 12 bar blues and B, but that other section, nice little chromatic. So why is it so fun is because when you go to the flat 6 chord, so you're really just playing in B major, and then when you get over that, you can flip to the minor and then go back to the major. It's the same thing from like a million songs, but like the Eric Johnson, a similar thing in Venus major, right? Minor. Anyway, I love chord changes like that are super cool. All right, so let's talk about this guitar. I bought a different version of the same guitar. It was a Cobra S, quilt top, different pickups. When I graduated high school in '99, I was going to go to UNT and do jazz. By the way, it's Sunday. What is it, 14th? And I'm drinking coffee at 6:45. I have a problem. Anyway, so I got one of these guitars, which, let's be honest, this is a badass guitar. And it was my main guitar for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. And then, actually, strangely enough, this guitar made me discover how much I loved single coils. Which I know sounds weird, right? If you're playing jazz where you got the tone knob rolled off and doing all that stuff. That's the coolest chord substitution when you're doing like. That's a freebie. Anyway. But yeah, on the weekends I was playing with, like at the church, it was a gospel group, and I just realized, because this does like a split sounds on both of these, that sound was just cutting a certain way in the mix. It was just sitting perfectly, and I found myself just always keeping this on single coils, and that's why I bought this blue guitar next, and that was the main guitar. So my old one, I didn't want to sell it, but it went for a good cause. I got an engagement ring for my wife, which, by the way, we were celebrating 20 years of marriage this year, which is fantastic. So really good. It was sold for a good cause. And then I went on this big kick where, I'd been a humbucker guy for forever, and then I went hard into single coils for, I don't know, maybe 15 years, or maybe 10. Anyway. But this one was a 2016 model, and it was it was interesting because when I first got it, I was like, man, it took me a while to like get back into humbuckers, even though I really wanted one of these. In fact, just a little bit about. I'll tell you a little bit about the specs and what makes this guitar cool. First of all, it looks like, regular Tom Anderson, kind of a drop top or super strat, but it's like Gibson style. So it's all mahogany, maple cap, rosewood fretboard, obviously two humbuckers, and it's the Gibson scale, right? So it's these days people will look at this and say, "Oh, it's a Pete Thorne guitar," but this predates that by a long time. And yeah, it's a shorter scale, and so it's a really cool thing. You don't get the snap that the longer Strat scale has, but man, it's such a sweet sound, and it's really really comfortable. I really like having both scales. So yeah, this is an awesome guitar, and then of course the pickup wiring is really good too. Where as you would expect, the bridge positions, humbucker, both of them parallel in the middle, and then the neck. But in the 2 and 4 position, this one is wired, to split it. It'll split it, and then if you do the middle position and pull the tone pot up, you kind of get the telly split thing. Really stupid. I suck at that stuff. But I think it's cool and fun. Okay. And actually, that wiring sound is super versatile. I mean, other guitars have a similar thing now. Back then, I wasn't aware of as much that had trick wiring like that, but I'm sure there were probably others. But I will say one thing: the way they wire these now, by default, is like the all silent sounds. So the 2 and 4 will put this as a in parallel, which is like parallel is not bad. It depends on the pickup and the guitar and the player and the amp. It depends on everything in the chain, right? To me, the parallel sound, there's definitely a place for it, but it's like a single coil on Ambien. So all of that really brilliant sparkle, the everything that makes a single coil interesting to me is like cut off. And so I actually just emailing with Tom and Marcus. They have you can get the older wiring schematic, and this is I flipped this one to be the old way where they're actually in single coil sounds. He says now most people they're really really big on everything being silent, but you lose a lot of tone. In my opinion, like the single coil, the split is a much sweeter sound, and Tom said he preferred that sound as well. So I know I'm not crazy. Yeah, so before I changed the wiring scheme, I didn't use the splits as much on this guitar, and as soon as I rewired it, it instantly brought me back to my old one, and like I had this flood of memories back into like, oh yeah, this was how I got into single coils. It's really cool. And yeah, and I hear a lot of people say on YouTube, splitting pickups is dumb because like, oh, it doesn't make my Les Paul a Strat. I understand that point. But you're also missing the bigger picture where if you're at a gig, it's actually super cool to be able to flip back and get different sounds and stuff. Well, it may not be like required for everything, and obviously if you're recording, who cares? It may be better to grab for a Strat, but having a guitar that gets this like huge range of sounds, like you don't lose anything by having it. So it's super useful for gigs. In fact, I took this guitar right before the pandemic shut down. I had a Christmas gig where it was like 2 nights for this private party. It was crazy. I was in Boston that week, and I got back, and I had 2 days to learn like 45 songs. It was it was intense. And I just remember, like, this guitar just covered the whole spectrum so well. And we did, like, you know, R&B stuff. We did a few jazz stuff, some Christmas carols, like, and some rock and stuff. And just, like, it was just awesome. And yeah, that's probably, like, the biggest thing about why, like, I'm such a huge fan of these guitars. They don't get the love they should on YouTube, which is ridiculous. But, so this guitar is now 8 years old, right? And every time I take this to a gig, like the night before, and same for the blue one, I get, like, excited. Like, oh my God, I can't wait. I can't wait to take the Cobra and actually get to play it tomorrow. Like, that's crazy. Like, that's amazing. You can have a guitar that long and still get that excited about it. It's like, that's a big, like, I don't know. I think that's really cool. So yeah, check out this splits. Here's a bridge humbucker. Here's a split. I mean, that sounds great. Dang it. If I can play it right. I mean, I could just sit here on that sound all day. Here's the middle position. I mean, that sounds... killer. Here's the neck full and split. Just perfect. Okay, one other thing, if you're ordering one of these, I will tell you they did change it. In the old days, this pickup was sandwiched up against the fretboard, like under the 24th harmonic, like you would expect. And they made a change, and I asked Tom about this. Part of it was like structural for the guitar, where they're doing more direct mounts these days. And then also, they say they prefer the sound of pulling the humbucker this way, and it's more like an SG. My opinion, after having this for a while, I compared it. I have a buddy in town who has an older style one where the humbucker is back where it's supposed to be. I much prefer it up that way. It's just it's that sound. And since I do a lot of, like, jazzy stuff, I like the warmth. I will say, if you do more high gain stuff, I could definitely see how pulling it to the right actually adds a amount of clarity to it. It's a little less muddy. Positioning the pickup really does make an impact this way on the strings. So if you're a high gain player, you'll probably like where they have it now. But as I'm a kind of a mid gain guy, that way is an improvement. So if I was going to order one of these, I would beg them to put it that way. The other thing, I did this guitar with direct mount pickups just because it looks good. If I ever got another one of these, I would go back to the pickup rings. It's so much easier to adjust the height, and yeah, this looks cool, but I would go back to rings. And that's the only thing I would change on this guitar, otherwise it's perfect. This one's got the what do you call it, the satin finish on the front and back. It does get shiny. I don't know if I can get the light in it right, but, like, if you get it in the right light, this part where my forearm hits has gotten a little shiny, and then there's a spot here and, like, up here, I guess, from grabbing the guitar. But who cares? It's worth it, because the glossy stuff, like, can get a little sticky on the forearm, especially if you're doing outdoor gigs. I always have a cloth to, like, wipe it down, and the satin doesn't seem to do that, so I really like it. And the shiny part, if it's natural, you don't really see it. So I've seen a bunch of other like painted satin guitars that once they start to get shiny from rubbing, they don't. I don't know. Doesn't look great, but this one, if you're doing natural, man. Who cares? Okay. Anyway, so yeah, that's it. Actually, when I first bought this guitar, this was one of the reasons I didn't get a Les Paul for so long. Was a buddy has like a real nice Les Paul, and we put it into an amp cranked up, and I was A-Bing, and I was like, pfft. Like I couldn't hear the difference for my money. So this definitely does the Les Paul sound. Obviously, it's a scale, it's the formula, it's the Les Paul thing, but it plays like a Strat. It plays like an Anderson. It's the Super Strat. It's, like I said, it's a Ferrari of guitars. So, they're definitely underrated. So, check one of these out. If you ever get a chance to play one, man, they're very cool. And I'm not going to say it's like superior PRS or anything else, right? They're all in that quality of top tier stuff, but these are just yeah, I don't know, these are my favorite, and they have been since like high school. I'll tell you one other funny story about when I went to buy this. So I said my first one, I sold it. Well, I got an itch to get the guitar back. I found some old pictures and I was like, man, I really, really want that guitar. So I tried to find it. And I, of course, failed miserably. But I went to the guy who I bought it from and sold it. And was like, do you know who has this? He's like, no clue. But he goes, he's just get another one. He's like, I'll get you a new one for $2,500. I was like, Are you kidding? $2,500? Anderson's cost more than that these days, right? Of course, this was 2016. I was like, okay, done. Let's order a new one. And so I paid him half the money. We spec'd it out, ordered it. He's like, call me in 4 months. So I called him back, and it was like, no, they're working on it. It's going to be a couple more months. They're behind, and blah blah blah. Anyway, this game continued for almost a year of this just stringing me along. And finally I called him, and he's like, I just saw the guys at the NAMM show. They said the guitar is going to be here in 2 weeks. And I'm pissed, right? Because it's been a long time. So I call Anderson, and I'm like, is it true that my guitar is going to be in Dallas in 2 weeks? And like, what are you talking about? So I tell them the whole story, and they're like, this person was not at NAMM. Your guitar was never ordered. They're not a dealer. Go get your money back. And so I went and got my money back, which they didn't want to give me. It was ridiculous. And I said, you lied to me, and have been lying for a year. I'm not leaving without the money. And then they gave it to me. Anyway, and of course, the local dealer up here, they had a slot, and so they built it. They obviously did a beautiful job on it and got it to me in not too many months. And they did give me a vanity serial number, which I appreciate. It's my wife's birthday with her initials on it. It's good, right? But yeah, it was crazy. And what doubly sucks is right before that, I had hired a luthier to build me kind of an N4 inspired guitar with a Stevens extended cutaway, right? And I sent him, $1,500 and some hardware to put on the guitar and stuff. And he ended up being a junkie and I lost all the money. I couldn't do anything about it, and went a big run around with the police. Anyway, so it was like back to back, just like that money was gone. At least I got the money back for this. But of course, the guitar cost more than twice, or I don't know, it was almost twice what I was planning to pay for it, but worth every penny. If you have a guitar you've had for 8 years and you still get like giddy when you get to play it, right? And this is probably this is the guitar I pick up the most right now. The blue one's still my number one, but these days, and I've been playing a lot of jazz standards and stuff, I grab this guitar first most of the time. So anyway, sorry for the super long rambles, but thanks for watching. I really enjoyed like all the comments last week. I appreciate that. That was super fun, just chatting and talking guitars with people. I imagine way more people on the internet care about Les Pauls, just because that's such a broad appeal guitar. But man, these Andersons they're my favorite for a reason. Those who know. All right, cheers.